I think we may have time to answer the first of the questions.
Okay, question 1. Dear Ajahn, why do some people seek for rebirth in Tushita heaven? Shouldn't we aspire for no rebirths? Isn't the human realm the best for practice? Thank you.
Good question. I think part of the reason students of Ajahn, some of the students of Ajahn aspire for rebirth in Tushita heaven is because Ajahn also aspires for rebirth in Tushita heaven. And I sometimes mention that, and some people think, well, if the Ajahn thinks it's good, that might be. See, I guess I'm fortunate because I know some people who can speak about the heaven realms from having an ability to either memory or quite possibly actually having a look at it, seeing how it is. So some monks who have the fourth jhana develop what's called the abhinya, divine eye, and people who with the divine eye, it's quite rare, but there are still some people in the world who have it, and it's the result of lifetimes of a lot of meditation and good sila. So people who have the purified divine eye, which Lord Buddha describes as one of the possible benefits of meditation, can see beings in other realms, and they can see other realms. Some of them, believe it or not, can actually send their mind to those realms, not their body, send their mind. And so beings with those abilities, I maybe know, I don't know, many hundreds of monks, but I know of 3 monks personally who I believe have this ability. And I'm in the practice tradition, and I've lived in Thailand for 27 years, so it's not a common thing. But so I have spoken with these people about these realms, and one of my teachers actually recommended for me to aspire for a heavenly rebirth, next life. And so one of the things I first want to say is, like, what this person asked in the question, shouldn't we aspire for a human birth? Isn't that the best for developing insight? So yes, when there's a Buddha's teachings around, when there are well-practicing disciples of Buddha's around, when human beings are behaving like human beings, being born in the human realm is a good thing. At this particular point in time, it really looks like sila in general is degenerating a lot. And, you know, one can see the way technology is affecting people. And yeah, this particular teacher seemed to think that it would be difficult to even keep the 5 precepts in the future, in the near future. And you can see with the way, you can see just like, for example, when I was a young man, a teenage boy, if I wanted to look at pornography, I'd have to take a train and a bus and go to a particular shop to get a magazine or a video. And that would be in a seedy part of town, and people would be looking at you strange when you walked in and out of that shop. There was a kind of and so there was a disincentive to doing that. And now, in just 30 years, anybody can look at all sorts of pornography at the kind of tap of a screen very easily. And I do believe that is affecting people's ideas of morality with regard to sexual restraint and sexual responsibility. And so that's just what's happened in 30 years with the advent of these kind of technologies. I recently saw a statistic that the sexually transmitted diseases in Thailand for the age group 15 to 24 have gone up 70% in the last 5 years. So 70% more teenagers and young adults. There are 70% more cases of sexually transmitted diseases. So that's your herpes and genital warts, HIV, syphilis, etc., gonorrhea. The only thing that changed in the last 5 years was the advent of online dating apps. So what happened, when people are able to arrange dates with people outside of their parents or their teacher's vision, and obviously it became much, much easier to find somebody to have sex with. And whereas in the past, people might be a bit shy or not very confident. But if you have one of these apps, you can find people who are looking just to have sex or people who are looking to have a relationship. And it became easier for people to hook up, easier than ever before, possibly. And so these things affect the world if people become much more sexually active much earlier, and morality, the level of morality in the human world affects all sorts of things, how peaceful the world is, whether there are wars, whether there are famines. Other things like, I think it's a pretty serious phenomenon that SpaceX is putting thousands of low orbit satellites into space, and talking about SpaceLink and Neuralink putting brain chips in people's brains that will connect to the satellite and the AI. And Google talk about having a Google mask where people won't have to kind of look at their phone all day. They'll have the mask on right on their face, so that kind of integrating the technology with the organism. And for people, many people I'm looking at, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, seems a bit strange, seems a bit abstract. But the other day, my flight was delayed for an hour, and I was sitting at the gate for 2 hours, maybe about 40 people sitting around me, and all 40 of them stared at their screens for the entire 2 hours. And I'm a fairly good monk. This is a Buddhist country. Not a single person raised their hands in Anjali, paid respects, asked me if I wanted a drink, asked me where I was going. This is a huge change in 10 years. 10 years ago, for a monk to be sitting at a gate at an airport, somebody would give you a drink without asking if you wanted one. Somebody would come and pay respects. The person next to you would ask you where you're going. That's just the way Thailand was a few years ago. I sat there for 2 hours. One guy walked past me with 2 drinks for himself. Didn't think to offer one to me. And I'm like, excellent. Make Tanjakun practice a little bit of patience. And I had to walk off and try to find where there was a drinking fountain, because I was so thirsty and nobody offered me a drink. So the world, my point is, the world changes, and the world changes fast. And the way these technologies absorb people's attention. And so some of those people are in their 50s and 60s. So some of these people's kind of level of connectedness, awareness of their surroundings has degenerated within their own lifetime. But if you're talking about kids who have their own phone from the age of 4 or 5 that are staring at these screens and actually grow up with it, if they're asked in the future, hey, do you want a chip in your brain so that you can be online all the time? You don't need to, do you want a mask on your face so that you can be chatting with your friends constantly? I think a lot of them would say, yeah, great. I could be in my virtual reality, enhanced reality. And so the point was, the human realm is a good place to be born when human beings are behaving like humans. If the human realm degenerates for a period of time, it might be better to avoid it. So that was this particular teacher's suggestion. And Tushita heaven, now there are dangers to the heaven realm. So the Chatu Maharaja and the Dava Timsa realms are kind of lower heaven realms where the sensuality is more refined. When you get born there, you get to enjoy the merits of the results of your good merits. And so there's more pleasant sights, more pleasant tastes, more pleasant sounds, more pleasant touches. And we can already see what a problem we have with our attachment to sensuality in this world. Imagine the beautiful people are more beautiful, the sweet tastes are more sweet, the fragrances are more sweet. The danger of becoming more sensual. And the other danger is using up all of your merit or a lot of it. It's like you've got this full credit card and you go to Club Med and you just use up all of your credit and then you go into debt as well. Okay, and then you come down and it's like you have to start from scratch again. So there's some dangers to that. I believe the devas can make some merits. They can, if you had the inclination to listen to Dhamma talks and to meditate as a human being, you may be able to continue some of these activities. But you can see how challenged it is now for people to give up their sensual attachments and to make time for practice. When sensuality is even more intoxicating, it's going to be harder. Apparently, the Tushita realm in particular is more subtle, and it correlates with the experience of upajjhara samadhi. The devas in the Tushita realm are experiencing a state which is almost touching absorption. And the reason the great masters don't recommend actually going for a Brahma realm where you could be completely in an absorption for an eon or the end of the eon is the Brahma devas have a different danger. They can get intoxicated with the luminous, beautiful radiance of their own minds, and there might be kind of a subtle, over a long period of time, an identification with that of feeling how wonderful I am with my beautiful, bright mind. So there can be a tendency to become conceited. Whereas in the Tushita realm, you're likely to meet beings who have more merits than you and more virtues than you. And that will help to keep us humble. It's like, yeah, you have your merits, you have your virtues accumulated. But apparently it's a realm where beings who are practicing to be Buddhas, great disciples, Pacceka Buddhas, it's a realm where they rest in between lives. When sometimes they just have to wait there for a while until they find a suitable rebirth. They go somewhere safe, then one of the particular characteristics of Tushita heaven is that you can choose your time and location of your rebirth. So a lot of people think that reincarnation is part of the Buddha's teachings. Most beings are subject to rebirth. They don't get to reincarnate. Their karma pushes them to wherever they're going. They don't have much choice about it. We can set aspirations while we're alive after making merits or making the mind peaceful that can affect the outcome to some degree. But only real masters have true mastery of that, and they can direct their rebirth from the human realm to a next birth. But apparently, it's one of the benefits of the Tushita realm is that the devas in the Tushita realm can choose time and place, location, the people that they will get born with. So you can actually choose a suitable situation. When the coast is clear, when it looks safe, come back down and get on with your practice again. And also, if you have become accustomed to, attenuated to the practice of meditation, you can meditate there. And so it's possible that the Tushita devas increase their merits. They don't just use up their merits. So it's a desirable realm to go to. It's not easy to go there. A person needs strong faith, quite a bit of merit, and probably the mind needs to have experienced upajjhara samadhi with some frequency. So it's not, this is one of the reasons we need to increase our meditation times and increase our amount of meditation, that we make the mind more kind of accustomed to those peaceful moments. Because if you want to go to a realm which is synonymous with, correlates with upajjhara samadhi, you're going to need to have some experience of it. So recently, one of my teachers told me that as a result of my being involved in the ordination of 9 new bhikkhus, I was one of the chanting ajahns, chanting for like 5 hours that day, that apparently my father was not far away, attending the ceremony as a Bhumma Deva. So that's an earthbound Deva, low-level earthbound Deva. But by the end of the ceremony, he had been reborn in Tushita heaven. So because he rejoiced in his son's merits and his mind probably experienced upajjhara samadhi, and then he had the subtle body beings can be reborn spontaneously quite quickly. They don't have to have a childhood or find a womb or etc. So he went from the Bulma Deva state to the Tushita Deva state as a result of that merit. And I wasn't aware of that. I was halfway through the ceremony thinking, oh my God, this is harder than I thought it would be. Oh my God, this is taking longer than I thought it would. Oh, Jesus, it's hot. But I didn't, I didn't stop, even though I wanted to. And the reason I mention this is because don't think when you're making merit and you're making parami that you're going to have a feeling of, wow, I'm making merit. Wow, I'm making parami. It's not necessarily like that. The experience of making merit and making parami is, I don't think I can do this. This is too hard, but you don't give up and you do it. Okay, you made some merit, you made some parami. At least that's my experience of it. It's not, most of us are not on the fast and easy path towards enlightenment. Those guys are already enlightened, but we have to keep working on it. in part, the previous question, shouldn't we aspire to no births? Yes, we should aspire to no rebirth. If you're on the fast track to Arahant path, if you want liberation as quickly as possible, you should aspire to no rebirth. But you have to have a practical understanding. You don't not get reborn just because you don't want to. Not wanting to be reborn is actually vibhava tanha, one of the types of cravings that binds us to rebirth. So it is not by wanting or not wanting that anybody gets liberated. One gets liberated by uprooting the causes that cause the rebirth, which is the attachment. And that is a lifetime's process. So we aspire to be born, we must aspire to be reborn in the places which are most suitable for cultivation while we work on that liberation. You can't just decide from the point of view of having a self-view with a thought that I'm not going to be reborn anymore. It doesn't work that way. You have to have enough mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom to see through the self-view, and you have to let go of your attachment, and then you'll be heading towards not being reborn again. Until then, we aspire to be born in places where we can practice to do that, to work towards that goal. The next question. Is it skillful to set a detailed aspiration regularly, like when it is time to pass on, may I pass on during my meditation or while listening to a dhamma talk? Should I aspire to be alone? I can read the first part. So I think that is getting a bit too specific because we don't know the circumstances of our death, most of us. So what I do is I make the aspiration. Certainly, I also hope to be able to die in meditation posture. It's something that I hope I can do. And but whether or not one can, it depends if one has a debilitating illness beforehand or etc. So what I do is I make the aspiration, may I die peacefully with full mindfulness. That's the aspiration. So other than that, at the time of death, may I die peacefully with full mindfulness and attain to the most auspicious rebirth. That's a general adhitthana that I make. It's a bit broad. And of course, one hopes to die while meditating. I know of one man who was a close student of Luang Por Tate, and he was having tea with him, and he put down his teacup and fell over on Luang Por Tate's lap, and he was dead. And then Luang Por Tate arranged his funeral. That's very special merit. But it's like, I don't know if it shows the greatest consideration that they have to arrange your funeral for you. But certainly the result of merit, and certainly quite a peaceful way to go. So some people do have very auspicious and beautiful deaths. It does happen. But such people tend to have very special and vast merits. Should I aspire to be alone when passing on? So no, I don't think so. I think we just continue to make merit, and we make the aspiration to be able to die under peaceful circumstances. We just don't have that much control over it often. And if you're quite attached to dying in a very particular way, the mind could get a bit kind of controlling and in not a good way. So we have to work with conditions. At the same time, I wouldn't recommend, if people are trying to drag you to hospital and fill you with tubes and keep you alive for months and months and months in a horrible state, I wouldn't necessarily cooperate with that myself. But that's up to you. And people do need to be mindful of that if you don't write a living will where you say specifically, for example, that you don't want to be resuscitated if you had a stroke, or you don't want to have your heart restarted if you had a heart attack or whatever, you actually have to write these things. Sometimes people have a really big stroke and they would have died if they were left alone. People bring them back to life and they're in hospital, they're kind of in bed and they can't talk and they're dribbling for years. That kind of thing happens, and but it will happen unless you actually write a living will that says the manner in which you want your health care to occur if you should experience such a phenomenon. So in general, with the monks community, I trust that my bhikkhu companions wouldn't kind of torture me unnecessarily and would allow my body to die according to its natural timeline. But if people are taken to hospitals, and doctors and nurses' job is to keep people alive, so you these days have to actually say that you don't want your life artificially prolonged after a serious heart attack or a serious stroke where you no longer have control of your faculties, etc. So something to consider. It's good mindfulness of death practice to write a will and to put some of these stipulations in your will and make it known to your relatives as well. So my father used to say this. My dad used to say, "Mate, if ever I'm stuck on a bed with all tubes coming out of me," he said, "I want you to put the pillow over my face and kill me," he said. And I said, "Well, I'm a monk, Dad. I can't do that." So you better speak to your other sons or daughters. And but it's very interesting that he had that intention, because he had a very strong will. And my father was walking around and going to the bathroom himself and feeding himself until a week before he died, even though he had stage 4 cancer. And he just got checked into a hospice, I think, for the last week of his life, because he was so determined to be in control of his faculties and strong. And but not everybody has such strong constitutions or such luck. So interesting thing about my father having possibly been reborn in Tushita heaven. When he was alive, he didn't even believe in devas. But I think having a bhikkhu son dedicating merit to him every day may have helped. He got born as the lowest level deva, and then from there was a launching pad to a higher level deva. And anyway, very happy for him. I hope he's part of my welcoming committee at, at my time. So if I may take my leave.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thanks,
Thank you, Brother Sunshine.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joyce.